Best spot for a lunch break ever, right, buddy? Glad you like your steak rare.
Every empire in the galaxy has a map. Every map has one empty space. That space is a small green planet. And on that planet, there is one forest. No drone has ever flown out of it. No probe has ever sent back a signal. No warship, no matter how strong, has ever dared to enter its shadow. For 300 years, every alien species has followed the same rule. Stay away from the forest on Elyra Prime. Governments have sent their best scouts. Emperors have offered fortunes to any pilot brave enough to try. Military academies use it as a warning story for new cadets. Every single attempt has failed. Nobody knows what waits inside. They only know that nothing that goes in ever comes back out the same. But the truth behind this warning will shock you. Here are 3 things almost nobody in the galaxy knows. First, the forest is not guarded by a monster. It is guarded by something far more surprising and far more familiar than you would ever expect. Second, every single alien ship that vanished near that forest did not die by accident. Something made sure of it, on purpose, and for a very human reason. Third, the answer to this 300-year mystery is hiding inside one small family, a girl who never learned to be afraid, and one giant creature that, according to every science textbook in the galaxy, should not exist. This is the true story of the forest so dangerous that even the most powerful alien empires refuse to go near it. It is a story about fear, about secrets, and about a kind of quiet courage that no alien empire has ever fully understood. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Far away from Earth, there is a group of powerful alien nations. Together, they are called the Thessaly Dominion. The Dominion controls hundreds of planets. Its fleets are the strongest in known space. Its scientists have cured diseases that once killed millions. Its engineers have built cities that float above the clouds. Its leaders believe there is nothing left in the galaxy that they cannot eventually understand, if they simply send enough ships and enough scientists. Except for one place. On the edge of Dominion space, past 3 long-range checkpoints and a quiet trade route rarely used anymore, sits a small green planet called Elyra Prime. From orbit, it looks peaceful. Blue oceans, soft white clouds, rolling green hills that catch the morning light in a gentle golden color. But on the northern half of the planet, there is a forest that covers thousands of miles, and that forest has one simple rule, written in every star chart in the galaxy: do not enter. Nobody remembers exactly who wrote that first warning. Some old records say it was left behind by a species that vanished long before the Dominion ever expanded this far. Other records say the warning was only added later, after the Dominion's own scouts tried to properly survey the planet, and only broken wreckage ever returned. What is certain, and agreed upon by every historian, every fleet commander, and every star mapmaker in known space, is this: for 300 years, every empire that has learned the truth about this forest has chosen, quietly and without argument, to leave it alone. Captain Kalen Vrex did not believe in old warnings. Kalen was tall, with silver-gray scales and sharp, careful eyes that missed very little. He had spent 15 years flying scout ships for the Dominion, longer than most captains his age. He had explored frozen moons, where the air itself could freeze solid in seconds. He had crossed burning deserts, where storms of sand could strip metal down to bare bone. He had piloted small survey craft over oceans so deep that sunlight could never reach the bottom. He was not a reckless man. He was careful, methodical, and calm under pressure. But even he had heard the whispered stories about Elira Prime, told quietly in officers' lounges late at night. The kind of stories that always started with someone saying, "You didn't hear this from me." His commanding officer, a stern woman named Director Yassa Thorne, called him into her office one gray morning. She did not smile. She rarely did. Her office was small, orderly, and filled with neat rows of framed commendations, each one a quiet reminder of exactly how seriously she took her duty to the Dominion. "We are sending a new mission to Elira Prime," she said, "without any warm-up at all. You will lead it." Kalen felt his stomach tighten, just slightly. The forest planet. Yes, Director Thorne finally looked up from her desk, meeting his eyes directly for the first time since he had walked inches. "I want to be clear about something. Captain, this is not a punishment posting, and it is not a suicide mission. The Dominion Council has debated this planet for years. Some believe it holds resources that could reshape our entire eastern border. Others believe it is simply a natural hazard that has been exaggerated by 3 centuries of nervous storytelling. Nobody actually knows, and that uncertainty has gone on long enough. With respect, Director, 3 expeditions have gone there before. None of them came back." Director Thorne slid a small data tablet across her desk without looking up. "I am well aware of the history. Captain, that is precisely why I am choosing you, and not someone less experienced." On the screen, Kalen saw a short, cold list. 3 ship names, 3 full crews. Each one marked the exact same way in the Dominion's official records. Contact lost. Cause unknown. The first ship, the Halcyon Reach, had vanished, sending out only a single burst of meaningless static, cut off mid-transmission. The second, the Iron Petal, had gone dark completely, without a single warning signal at all, as if it had simply stopped existing. The third, the Quiet Current, had managed to send one final message before its signal disappeared forever. Just 5 words, logged carefully into Dominion archives. "It is not what we thought." Nobody in the Dominion knew what those words truly meant. Some analysts believed it meant an unknown predator lived deep in the forest, something bigger, faster, and smarter than anything on record. Others, more cautious, believed it meant a rival empire had built a hidden military base there, disguised beneath the trees. A few, quietly, in private conversations that never made it into official reports, whispered a much stranger theory. They said the forest was protected by something the Dominion could not fight at all with weapons, ships, or numbers. Kalen did not believe in monsters. He believed in facts, in sensors, and in careful, patient planning. He told himself that whatever waited on Elira Prime, it was simply something the earlier crews had not been properly prepared for. He would be different. He would bring stronger shields, better drones, a larger and more disciplined crew, and, most importantly, he would refuse to take a single unnecessary risk. That night, before his ship left orbit, Kalen sat alone in his quarters and pulled up every old record he could find about Elira Prime. Most of it was fragmented and strange. Old star charts marked the forest with a single red symbol that had no official meaning anywhere in current Dominion records. Only a footnote reading, "Origin unknown." A handful of ancient survey notes, written in a language his ship's translation computer could barely process, contained only one sentence, repeated over and over across different documents, almost like a chant. Emphasis: they are not alone there. And they are not afraid. Emphasis. Kalen read that sentence 3 times. Slowly. He assumed, reasonably, that it meant some kind of alien species already lived on the planet, something fierce enough to have earned this reputation over 3 centuries of careful avoidance. He closed the file at last, checked every system on his ship one final time, and gave the order to begin the long journey out to the edge of known space. Before the ship left, Kalen met briefly with his 2 most trusted crew members in the launch bay. Lyra, his communications officer, was young but sharp, the kind of officer who noticed small details that everyone else missed. Das, his engineer, was older and quieter, a man who had fixed more broken ships than he could count and rarely spoke, unless he had something useful to say. Kalen trusted them both completely, and he told them honestly, without hiding anything, exactly what the mission history looked like. 3 ships. No survivors. No clear cause, he said simply. If either of you wants to step back from this mission, nobody will think less of you for it. Lyra shook her head immediately. I want to know what happened to them. Sir, somebody should. Das just nodded once, calm as always. Ship's ready. Let's go find out. As his ship, the Silver Current, pulled slowly away from the Dominion shipyard, Kalen looked at the small green dot marked on his navigation screen, still weeks away. He did not know it yet, but everything he believed about power, about danger, and about who truly ruled that quiet green forest, was about to change forever. The journey to Elira Prime took 19 long days. Kalen used every single one of them well. He studied every scrap of old data his archives could offer, ran his crew through emergency drills until they could complete them half asleep, and personally triple-checked every critical system on the Silver Current, from the shields down to the emergency oxygen seals. By the time the ship finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the green planet, Kalen felt as prepared as any commander reasonably could. From orbit, Elira Prime looked almost gentle, almost inviting. Soft white clouds drifted lazily over calm blue oceans. Small green islands dotted the southern sea like scattered stepping stones. But when Kalen turned his ship's long-range cameras toward the northern continent, the bridge went quiet. The forest stretched farther than any single scan could properly measure. Dark green treetops rolled endlessly across hills and valleys like a thick, unbroken carpet, stretching to the horizon in every direction. Thin silver mist hung low between the trees, even in the middle of the day. There were no roads, no visible lights, no obvious signs, at first glance, of any civilization at all. Sensors are picking up strange readings near the forest edge, said Lyra, his young communications officer, her voice steady but her hands moving quickly over her console. Something is interfering with our long-range scans. It's not weather. It's not natural interference either. It's something artificial. Kalen leaned forward in his command chair. Artificial how? I don't know yet, sir. It's almost like a pattern, like camouflage, but on a massive scale. Whatever it is, it's blocking us from seeing clearly past the tree line, no matter which angle we try. Kalen ordered the ship into a lower, more careful orbit. He sent down 2 automated drones first, small scouting units built to survive nearly any environment in known space, from volcanic surfaces to crushing ocean depths. The drones descended smoothly, Cameras rolling, sensors fully active. For the first few minutes, everything looked completely normal. Trees, rivers winding through the green, a few large animals moving through the underbrush, briefly caught on camera before slipping quietly into shadow. Then, without a single second of warning, both drone signals cut out at exactly the same moment. Not slowly, not with static, error messages, or any warning signs at all. Just gone, as if a hand had simply reached out and switched them off. "Send the recovery signal," Kalen said, keeping his voice level. "Already tried," Sir Lyra answered, frowning at her console. "Nothing. No wreckage beacon, no distress ping, no debris signature. It's like they were never there at all." The bridge was silent for a long, heavy moment. Kalen thought about the 3 missing ships before his own. He thought about that final, strange message. "It is not what we thought." He felt the same quiet unease creeping back into his chest, but he pushed it firmly down. He was a professional. Professionals did not turn their ship around after losing 2 small drones. "We land at the edge of the forest," he decided finally. "Not inside it. Just close enough to walk the border on foot, with a full team, full shields, and full caution." The landing went smoothly enough. The Silver Current touched down in a wide, sunlit clearing about a mile from where the true tree line began. Kalen led a team of 6 down the landing ramp, weapons holstered but within easy reach, portable scanners held ready in gloved hands. The air outside was warm and smelled faintly of rain and fresh green leaves. Birds, or something very close to birds, called out to each other somewhere in the distance. It did not feel like a place built for death. It felt, strangely and unexpectedly, like a place that was simply, quietly, alive. They walked toward the forest edge slowly, scanning the ground and the tall trees above with careful, deliberate movements. About halfway there, one of the crew members stopped suddenly and pointed toward a patch of tall grass. "Sir, wreckage." Half buried in the overgrown grass, mostly hidden beneath thick creeping vines, sat the crumpled remains of a small transport shuttle. Kalen recognized the design almost instantly. It was an older Dominion scout craft, the exact same model used by the very first missing expedition, nearly a decade earlier. The ship had not been burned or blown apart. It was simply crushed, as though something enormous had stepped directly onto it, or wrapped around it and squeezed with tremendous, careful force. Strange claw marks, deep and unusually wide, ran along one broken, twisted wing. Kalen crouched beside the wreck and carefully pried open a sealed storage panel near the cockpit. Inside, protected from years of weather, sat a small black data recorder, its casing scratched but intact. He picked it up gently and connected it to his handheld scanner, waiting as the old device slowly came back to life. The recording that played back was short, no more than 30 seconds. At first, there was only the ordinary hum of a ship's engine and quiet, routine conversation between crew members preparing for landing. Then, faint sound of surprise, vast footsteps, a single voice, calm and unusually clear given the situation, speaking words Kalen absolutely did not expect to hear. Emphasis: wait. Don't shoot. Just wait. Let me talk to them first. Emphasis. Then the recording cut sharply to silence. Kalen stared at the small device resting in his open palm. The voice on the recording was not alien. It was, unmistakably, human. He had heard of humans before. Of course, every species in known space had, at least in passing. Humans were a relatively young, chaotic species from a small blue planet far from Dominion territory, known mostly for their strange and often contradictory mix of curiosity, stubbornness, and unpredictable kindness toward strangers. The Dominion maintained limited, cautious contact with human worlds, mostly through trade agreements and careful diplomatic channels. Nobody, absolutely nobody, expected to find a human voice sealed inside a wrecked Dominion scout ship, on a forbidden planet, at the edge of a forest that had already quietly swallowed 3 separate Dominion expeditions. "Sir," Lyra said quietly over his comm, her voice tighter now. "You need to see this." Long-range scan just picked up smoke. About 2 miles into the forest. "It looks like campfire." Kalen looked up slowly from the twisted wreckage toward the dark, endless tree line ahead of him. Somewhere in that vast green forest, something was alive, and clearly capable of survival. Something that had already survived, and perhaps even quietly defeated 3 full Dominion expeditions. And now, it seemed that something might simply be sitting calmly by a fire, waiting. Before heading back to gather a smaller team, Kalen ordered a wider scan of the immediate area around the wreckage. About 200 yards further into the tree line, his scanner picked up a second piece of debris, smaller this time, half buried under years of fallen leaves. It was a communications relay, the exact same model used by the second missing ship. The iron pedal. Unlike the shuttle, this device had not been crushed or torn apart. It had simply been switched off, carefully and deliberately, its power cell removed and placed neatly beside it on a flat stone, almost like someone had wanted it found intact. "Sir, this wasn't destroyed in a fight," Das said quietly, turning the relay over in his hands. "Somebody took this apart on purpose. Carefully. Like they didn't want to break it. Just stop it from transmitting." Kalen stared at the neatly placed power cell for a long moment. Whoever, or whatever, had disabled this relay had not done so out of blind aggression. It looked almost respectful, like a warning rather than an attack. That single detail unsettled him more than the crushed shuttle had. He made his decision quickly, before doubt could talk him out of it. He would take a small team, just himself and 2 others, and walk directly into the forest to find out the truth for himself. Kalen chose 2 crew members to join him, a quiet, careful engineer named Das, and Lyra, whose sharp instincts had already proven useful more than once. The rest of the team stayed behind to guard the ship and monitor the sensors carefully from a safe distance, ready to respond the moment anything went wrong. Walking into the forest felt very different than Kalen had expected. The trees were tall and ancient, but soft sunlight still broke through in warm golden beams between the branches. The ground beneath their boots was soft with thick green moss. Strange glowing flowers grew along the roots of the oldest trees, pulsing gently in slow, steady rhythm, almost like quiet heartbeats. It was, undeniably, beautiful. It did not feel like a place built for killing. It felt, if anything, like a place that had simply been left carefully, deliberately undisturbed. They followed the faint smell of wood smoke for nearly an hour, moving slowly and quietly through the trees. Along the way, Lyra kept a running log of everything her scanner picked up, narrating quietly under her breath. Soil samples rich with unusual minerals. Plant life that seemed to glow faintly whenever a shadow passed over it, as if reacting to movement. Animal tracks, some small, some alarmingly large, crossing and recrossing the same worn paths, almost like established trails rather than random wandering. "This isn't a wild, empty forest," Sir Lyra said quietly. "Something here follows patterns, regular paths, regular routines. That usually means intelligence, or at least organization." Das crouched beside one especially large set of tracks, pressing his gloved hand carefully beside the print to compare the size. Whatever made this walked upright, at least part of the time. And it wasn't in a hurry. Kalen said nothing, but he noted every detail carefully. Nothing about this forest matched the picture painted by 3 centuries of frightened rumors. It felt observed, cared for, almost tended, the way a family might care for a large and complicated garden. Then, through a gap in the thick green canopy, they finally saw it. A small clearing opened up ahead, warm and golden in the late afternoon light. A simple wooden cabin stood at its center, clearly built by hand from forest timber, patched and repaired many times over the years. Smoke rose gently from a stone chimney. Nearby, a young man sat casually on a large fallen log, calmly eating what looked like a simple sandwich, completely relaxed, as though nothing in the world could possibly threaten him here. And beside him, sitting just as calmly, was something enormous. It was a massive creature, easily 3 times the size of a grown human, covered head to foot in thick, dark fur. Along its shoulders and back, hard armored plates glowed faintly with lines of deep orange light, like slowly cooling embers in a dying fire. Its claws were long, curved, and clearly powerful enough to tear through solid metal without much effort. And yet, in that quiet, sunlit clearing, the creature sat gently, holding a piece of meat carefully in its massive hands, eating alongside the man, as if the 2 of them were simply old friends sharing a quiet lunch together. Kalen froze in place. Beside him, Das whispered under his breath, "Sir, my scanner says that creature's bite force alone could crush our ship's hull plating like paper." The young man looked up before Kalen could respond, wiping a crumb from the corner of his mouth. He did not look afraid. He simply smiled, the easy, unguarded way someone might smile at a new neighbor stopping by unannounced. "You're the first ones to actually walk up instead of flying drones over the trees," he said, his voice friendly and unhurried. "That's smarter. Honestly, the drones make Ember nervous, and a nervous Ember tends to mean a bad afternoon for everyone." "Ember?" Kalen asked carefully, keeping his hand near his weapon without drawing it. The man nodded toward the giant creature beside him. "That's her name. She doesn't bite unless you give her a very good reason to." Kalen kept his posture cautious, but did not raise his weapon. "My name is Kalen Vrex. I represent the Thessaly Dominion. We have lost 3 full expeditions near this forest over the years. I need to understand why." The young man's easy smile faded slightly, replaced by something more thoughtful. "My name's Ethan. I figured someone would come eventually. Sit down, if you're comfortable. I'll tell you the truth. All of it, if you're actually willing to listen." Kalen hesitated for a moment, glancing again at the giant creature sitting beside Ethan. Ember watched him closely with dark, intelligent eyes, but did not move, did not growl, did not show any sign of the violence Kalen had fully expected walking in. Slowly, carefully, Kalen sat down on a nearby log. Lyra and Das stood close behind him, alert but calm, weapons still holstered. Ethan told his story simply. without any exaggeration or dramatic flourish, the way someone tells a story they have told many times before, but rarely to strangers. Nearly 15 years earlier, a small human colony ship had suffered a critical engine failure while passing quietly through this distant system, far from any settled trade route. Unable to reach any properly settled world in time, the ship crash-landed hard on Elira Prime. Most of the crew survived the impact, but their long-range communication systems were completely destroyed in the crash. Rescue never came. They were alone, on a completely unknown planet, with no possible way to call for help. At first, the forest seemed just as dangerous as any wild, unexplored place could be. Strange, unfamiliar animals moved through the underbrush at night. Unpredictable storms rolled in without warning. Certain plants proved dangerously toxic to human skinches. Several colonists were injured badly in those first difficult months. But the humans, stubborn and resourceful as ever, did not try to fight the forest head-on. Instead, they tried, patiently and carefully, to understand it. One quiet evening, a young Ethan, only a boy at the time, no older than 10, found an injured creature tangled painfully in a fallen tree near the edge of camp. It was Ember, badly hurt and clearly starving, apparently abandoned by her own kind for being too weak and slow to keep up with the group. Most of the older colonists strongly wanted to leave her alone, fearing she was simply too dangerous to safely approach. But Ethan, ignoring every single warning from the adults around him, quietly brought her small amounts of food every single day for nearly 2 weeks, always keeping a careful, respectful distance, patiently waiting for her to learn to trust him. Those early years were harder than Ethan liked to describe in detail. Food was scarce until the colonists learned which fruits were safe. Shelter meant sleeping under makeshift tarps through storms that shook entire trees to their roots. More than once, families argued bitterly over whether to keep trying to signal for rescue or to accept that none was coming and start truly building a life instead. It was that argument, more than anything else, that eventually shaped who they became. The ones who stayed, who chose to plant roots instead of waiting for a rescue that might never arrive, were the ones who slowly turned survival into something closer to belonging. She never forgot that quiet, patient kindness. As Ember slowly healed and grew larger, she stayed close to the human camp, no longer wandering far. Other creatures like her, drawn by simple curiosity or perhaps by her calm presence, began appearing cautiously at the edges of the settlement over time. What started as careful patience gradually turned into genuine, quiet friendship. The humans learned which plants were safe to eat, which animals meant no real harm, and which parts of the forest deserved careful respect and distance. In return, creatures like Ember slowly began to see the humans, not as prey to hunt or as threats to avoid, but as a true part of their own world. "We didn't tame this forest," Ethan said simply, looking out at the trees. "We just stopped trying to fight it every single day. And eventually, it stopped trying to fight us back." Kaylin looked over at Ember again, more carefully this time. The massive creature tilted her head slightly, studying him with the same quiet, careful intelligence he had seen before only in the eyes of some of the Dominion's most respected senior diplomats. While Ethan spoke, a young girl, no older than 9, wandered out from behind the cabin, curious about the strangers sitting in her family's clearing. She had Ethan's same easy confidence, walking straight up to Ember without a hint of fear and leaning against the creature's massive front leg as though it were the most ordinary thing in the world. "That's my daughter, Mira," Ethan said, smiling properly for the first time since they had sat down. She's grown up knowing Ember her whole life. To her, creature like this isn't frightening at all. It's just family. Mira studied Kalen with open curiosity, tilting her head slightly. "Are you from a spaceship?" she asked, completely unbothered by his silver scales or unfamiliar uniform. "I am," Kalen answered carefully, unsure how to speak to a human child. "Cool," Myra said simply, and went right back to leaning against Ember, as if that settled the matter entirely. Kalen watched the small exchange with quiet astonishment. In that simple moment, he understood something the Dominion's reports could never have captured. This was not a desperate colony surviving in fear. It was a home, built patiently over 15 years, where a child could grow up completely unafraid of a creature that terrified entire alien fleets. But the missing ships, Kalen pressed gently. The wreckage, the lost drones. If your people here are genuinely peaceful, why has nothing that has ever entered this forest returned? Ethan's expression grew noticeably more serious. Because peaceful doesn't mean weak, Captain. And it definitely doesn't mean we simply let armed strangers walk in and take whatever they decide they want. Ethan explained the rest carefully, choosing each word with the practiced ease of someone who had told this exact story many times before, though clearly never to anyone from another star system entirely. The human survivors, it turned out, were not the only people quietly living inside this forest. Over the past 15 years, their small original colony had slowly grown into a wide, scattered network of family groups, spread carefully across dozens of hidden clearings throughout the vast forest. Some families had descended directly from the original crash survivors. Others had joined much later, after smaller ships crashed nearby in later years, or after a handful of humans from passing trade vessels chose, quietly and deliberately, for their own personal reasons, to simply stay behind and never leave. None of these families possessed advanced weapons. None of them had powerful ships, energy shields, or any real military technology at all. What they had instead was something the Dominion, for all its power, had never once properly planned for: complete, intimate knowledge of their own environment, deep and unshakable trust between every family, and strong, genuine bonds with creatures like Ember, who were, in their own right, among the single most powerful animals anywhere on the entire planet. When the first Dominion ship arrived, Ethan explained, it didn't ask a single question first. It sent scanning drones flying low straight over our homes, mapping absolutely everything in sight, almost certainly preparing a full report for future resource extraction. Ember and the others saw strange metal machines flying low over their own territory, right over their young. They reacted exactly the way any protective, intelligent animal naturally would. And the second ship, Kalen asked quietly, almost afraid to hear the answer. The second ship landed armed troops directly. Fully armed troops, marching straight toward our settlements without a single attempt at communication first. We didn't know who they were or what they truly wanted from us. We only knew that armed strangers were marching directly toward our children. Ethan's voice stayed calm throughout, but grew noticeably firmer. We defended our home. Captain, we didn't kill a single person who chose to surrender or retreat peacefully. But we made absolutely sure they understood, very clearly, that this forest was not empty, unclaimed land simply waiting to be taken. And the third ship, the one that sent that final message, it is not what we thought. Ethan almost smiled at the memory. That one actually tried to talk first, Believe it or not, a young officer walked out completely alone, unarmed, both hands raised high above his head. We brought him carefully to meet a few of our community elders. He spent 3 full days living here quietly among us, watching how we truly lived, watching the way Ember and the other creatures moved among us like genuine family. When he finally understood the full truth, he made a choice. He refused to report our exact location accurately to his own superiors. He said, in his own words, that this forest deserved to remain hidden. His final message wasn't a warning against us at all. Captain, it was meant to protect us. Kalen sat quietly for a long, heavy moment, carefully processing everything he had just heard. The Dominion's official records listed all 3 expeditions simply as failures caused by unknown hostile forces. In reality, the first 2 had directly provoked an entirely defensive response by approaching without any real attempt at peaceful contact whatsoever, and the third had deliberately chosen, at real personal risk, to protect a secret rather than expose it to his own government. Why tell me all of this? Kalen finally asked, meeting Ethan's steady gaze. I could report everything I've seen here today. My superiors could easily send full invasion fleet in response. Ethan looked at him steadily, without any real fear in his eyes. Ethan mentioned, almost in passing, that one of the oldest members of their community, a woman everyone simply called Elder Rosa, had been among the original crash survivors and still remembered the exact night they landed. She had helped organize the very first shared harvest between 3 different family groups, an event the community still quietly celebrated every year. It was Elder Rosa, Ethan explained, who first suggested that, instead of hiding from the forest's creatures, they should simply try living alongside them, the same slow, patient way any new neighbor learns to get along with another. You could, absolutely, but I don't think you actually will. Why not? Because you walked into this entire forest with 2 people beside you. Captain, instead of bringing an army, you didn't fire a single shot, not even when you first saw Ember standing right in front of you. You're not here to conquer anything today. You're here because you genuinely wanted the truth. That already tells me something important about the kind of person you actually are. Before Kalen could properly respond, a low, heavy rumble echoed through the ground beneath their feet. Ember's large ears lifted sharply, instantly alert. In the far distance, faint but completely unmistakable, came the deep sound of heavy engines descending fast through the upper atmosphere. Ethan's calm expression tightened immediately. That's not your ship, is it? Kalen's calm crackled urgently against his wrist. Lyra's voice came through, tense and unusually fast. Captain, we are picking up a full Dominion battle group entering orbit right now. Director Thorne authorized a follow-up fleet 3 full days ago, in case we lost contact for too long. They're already preparing to deploy ground forces directly into the forest. Kalen's stomach dropped hard. He had never requested backup. He had never truly lost contact for longer than a few routine hours. But somewhere above the atmosphere, an entire invasion force was arriving right now, fully ready to treat this peaceful, carefully hidden forest exactly the same terrible way the first 2 doomed expeditions once had. What Kalen did not yet know was that the order to send this second fleet had not come from Director Thorne alone. A senior Dominion general named Vec Oren, a man known throughout the fleet for his impatience and his deep distrust of anything he could not fully control, had grown tired of waiting for answers from a single scout ship. He had quietly pushed the deployment through military channels 3 days earlier, convinced that any planet capable of destroying Dominion ships needed to be secured by force, not studied by a lone captain wandering through the trees. To General Oren, this forest was not a mystery to solve. It was a problem to remove. Ethan seemed to sense the shift in Kalen's expression immediately. Not everyone in your chain of command feels the way you do. Do they? Captain? No, Kalen admitted quietly. Not everyone. Kalen moved fast, his mind racing ahead of his own feet. He opened a direct emergency channel to Director Thorne, his voice sharp and urgent. Director, cancel the deployment. Immediately, before it's too late. Captain Vrex, Thorne's voice replied over the channel, cold and perfectly controlled as always. You have been out of full contact for 6 consecutive hours. Standard protocol requires automatic reinforcement in cases of prolonged silence near a designated hostile zone. There is no hostile zone here, Director Kalen said firmly, choosing every word carefully. There is a human settlement here. Peaceful, unarmed by any real Dominion standard. If your ground forces land the exact same way the first 2 expeditions once did, this will not end well for anyone involved, including us. There was a long pause on the line. Explain yourself. Quickly. Kalen explained as fast as he possibly could, laying out everything Ethan had carefully told him. The original crash landing, the long years of careful survival, the deep bond between the humans and the creatures of the forest, and the true, verified cause behind each of the 3 previous failed missions. He described Ember in detail, calm and gentle beside her human family, showing absolutely no aggression at all unless directly and seriously threatened first. Director Thorne was silent for a long, uncomfortable moment. Captain, even if every word of this is entirely true, the Dominion cannot simply ignore an unclaimed, resource-rich planet because of one small isolated human colony. It's not unclaimed, Director Kalen said, his voice rising slightly with real urgency now. It's their home, and it has been for 15 years. Listen to me carefully. These people have quietly outlasted or defeated 3 full Dominion missions without a single piece of advanced weaponry. Not because they are weak or lucky, Director, but because they understand this environment better than we ever possibly could, and because every single powerful creature in this forest considers them true family worth protecting at any cost. If you send armed ground forces in now with weapons already drawn, you will not be invading empty, unclaimed land. You will be starting a long, costly war you genuinely cannot win quickly, against an enemy our own sensors cannot even properly track through these trees. Far above the clearing, the descending Dominion battle group slowed its approach sharply, awaiting final, updated orders from command. On the bridge of the lead battleship, General Oren argued fiercely against the recall, insisting that retreating now would only prove to every rival empire that the Dominion could be frightened away from valuable territory by rumors and old stories. But Director Thorne, standing firm on the open comm channel, reminded him coldly that 3 separate crews had already died or vanished chasing exactly that same stubborn pride, and she would not authorize a 4th. Her final word on the matter was simple and absolute. Stand down. Down in the clearing itself, Ethan had already risen quietly to his feet, one steady hand resting gently on Ember's massive, armored shoulder. Around them, emerging silently from the shadows of the surrounding trees, more shapes began to appear. More humans, dozens of them in total, calm but fully alert, some carrying simple hand tools, others standing quietly beside creatures just as large and powerful as Ember herself. They did not attack. They did not shout or threaten. They simply stood together, forming a united, unshakable wall of quiet resolve, showing the approaching fleet above exactly what truly awaited them if diplomacy were to fail here today. An older woman Kaelin recognized from Ethan's description as Elder Rosa moved slowly to stand at the very front of the group, her expression calm and unafraid, as though she had rehearsed this exact moment many times in her mind over the years, hoping it would never actually come. Kaelin watched this entire scene unfold with a strange, powerful mixture of awe and dawning understanding. This was not some hidden, desperate colony hoping simply to avoid discovery for a little while longer. This was an entire, fully self-sufficient community that had carefully built genuine trust with a planet most advanced species considered completely untamable. Their real strength was never measured in weapons or ships. It was measured instead in patience, in loyalty, and in mutual respect earned slowly over many years. Back on the comm channel, Director Thorne finally spoke again, her voice noticeably quieter than before. Captain Vrex, if what you are describing here is genuinely accurate, engaging this population directly would cost the Dominion far more, in every possible sense, than any resource gained could ever be worth. Recall the battle group immediately. File a complete report the moment you return. This entire system will be marked permanently restricted, effective today. The invasion fleet turned away slowly overhead, engines burning bright and steady against the darkening evening sky as it retreated back toward orbit and beyond, leaving Elira Prime and its hidden forest completely untouched once again, just as it had remained for 300 quiet years. Ethan let out a slow, deep breath of relief as the last distant engine sound finally faded into silence around them. Ember lowered her massive head gently, nudging his shoulder once in quiet, wordless reassurance. "Thank you," Ethan said simply, turning to Kaelin, "for actually listening today, when nobody else ever bothered to." Kaelin looked slowly around the peaceful clearing, at the families gradually relaxing again, at Ember settling calmly back down beside the fallen log, as though nothing dangerous had happened here at all. "I came here today looking for a threat," he admitted honestly. "I found something else entirely instead." He returned to his ship that evening as the sun set behind the trees, carrying with him truth far stranger, and far more deeply human, than any threat report could ever properly capture. The forest would remain officially forbidden in every Dominion record from that day forward, but for an entirely different reason than anyone in the wider galaxy had ever once imagined. Here is the twist almost nobody watching this expected. The forest on Elira Prime was never protected by a monster, a hidden weapon, or a secret army waiting in the dark. It was protected by kindness, by patience, and by the quiet, unbreakable loyalty between ordinary humans and the creatures who chose, freely, to trust them. The very qualities the wider galaxy had always quietly underestimated in humanity, their stubborn compassion and their fierce, protective loyalty to family, turned out to be the exact same qualities that made this forest completely unconquerable. But there is one more small detail from that day worth remembering carefully. Before Kaelin finally left the clearing, Ethan mentioned something quietly, almost as an afterthought, as they said their goodbyes. Elira Prime, he said, was not the only planet like this one. Scattered quietly across known space, hidden behind old warnings and long-forgotten star charts, other small, Self-sufficient human communities were rumored to live in similarly forbidden places, each one protected by that same quiet, patient trust between people and planet. If that rumor is even partly true, it means this single forest is not an isolated mystery at all. It may be only the very first thread of a much larger, hidden story, one still waiting patiently to be uncovered across the wider stars. The forest that frightened the most powerful empires across the entire galaxy was never truly dangerous in the way anyone assumed. It simply belonged to people who understood something ancient. Powerful empires had long since forgotten that real strength often looks exactly like quiet peace, right up until the very moment someone foolishly decides to threaten it. If this opened your eyes, let's remember what this story really taught us today. A forest feared by every alien empire across known space was never guarded by monsters at all. It was protected by a father's quiet patience, a boy's fearless curiosity, and one giant creature who simply never forgot a single act of kindness shown to her. Real power, this story gently reminds us, often hides behind quiet strength, not loud threats or bigger weapons. If this story genuinely pulled you in today, hit that like button right now, before you forget. It honestly helps this channel grow, and it helps more people around the world discover stories exactly like this one. If you're brand new here, welcome. We're glad you found us. This channel is all about HFY and Sci-Fi stories, where humanity quietly surprises the entire galaxy in ways nobody ever expects going inches. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications too, because brand new stories just like this one drop every single week without fail. Down in the comments below, I genuinely want to hear directly from you. If you personally discovered a hidden, peaceful world like Elira Prime, would you work to protect its secret, or would your own curiosity get the better of you eventually? Drop your honest answer down below right now. I read every single comment on this channel, and some of the very best story ideas we've ever used have come directly from this amazing community. And if you want even more deep dive HFY stories exploring hidden human worlds, unexpected alliances, and galaxy-changing secrets just like this one, check out the next video linked clearly on screen right now. This story you just watched is genuinely only the beginning of a much bigger universe. And there are more forests, more hidden families, and more quiet secrets out there still waiting to be found. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end today. Stories like this one only reach more people because of viewers exactly like you, sharing and supporting this channel. See you in the very next one.